Hello, folks, and welcome back to the channel. So, at last, we have the Beatles Anthology Volume 4 with us. Now, I say that, obviously, dependent on what you've heard of it so far, you're either thinking, what an awful waste of money, or you're going, wow, hooray, I am so glad that they added an additional Volume 4 to the three I've already got, and now I have those other three remastered. Hooray! Well, what do you think? I'll tell you my opinions. I gravitated first of all to a track that I really, really like, and that is Real Love. Now, at the time of release, these, well, official new Beatles singles as they were back then, which is now, would you believe it, 30 years old, which is hard to believe, seems like only yesterday, really, the 90s to me. Um, I was thinking, oh, I don't like the sound of this. I mean, obviously it came from an analog tape recorder, and obviously the other three remaining Beatles played on this song, but it somehow didn't seem it didn't fit right with me, to be honest, and neither did Free as a Bird. Um, but I have to say, I did dive in, as I say, first track on my list to listen to was Real Love. And I've got to say, what an absolute disappointment. Real Love is a real disappointment, I'm afraid. Um, I put on the headphones to listen to it initially, and I was really, really, really wishing and hoping for this song to be just brilliant. Um, but I was really, really disappointed. I even put it on in the car as well, to be honest, just to see if it made a bit of a difference, but it didn't at all. Um, Sadly, as much as John's voice is clearer, that's a definite. Um, it doesn't really sound like him, and in comparison with the 96, I think, 95, 96 version, um, yeah, it's a pale imitation. When you listen to the original that came out, as I say, 30 odd years ago, that version is really, really good, actually. And when you compare the two together, because it does sound like John, okay, it's an analog recording on an analog cassette recorder, but it does actually sound like him. The second complaint I have about that song is that it sounds it just sounds toneless, no bass, or all you seem to have, to be honest, is a wall of. It just sounds tinny. It really doesn't sound any good at all, and I am so disappointed because I was hoping. I've got to be honest for you know a real. I guess I was hoping for another Now and Then, if I'm honest, because if I compare Real Love and Free as a Bird to Now and Then, they really do pale in significance, compared to that track. But as I say, Real Love actually I found more disappointing than Free as a Bird. I don't dislike Free as a Bird. That's on there obviously too. And although you could argue John's voice sounds weaker, I do think that in terms of the music on that track, it comes more alive. You've got more guitar that you can hear. It's got more depth. But so to me, Free as a Bird on the Anthology 4 is okay. That's not a bad track. And Now and Then is okay. I don't. It's not my favourite track. I think it's a bit sort of downbeat, to be honest. A little bit too bit downbeat for me. It's not very complex or whatever. But Real Love is a major, major killer. It is. I just, as I say, I was so disappointed. I am disappointed. So, what can we say about it? I don't know. I think. Let me. Sorry. let me just bring up something here on the official Beatles website, right? So, Anthology 4, it says, is newly curated by Giles Martin, brilliant, including 13 previously unreleased session outtakes dating from 63 to 69. It also includes the band's final single, Now and Then, released in 2023, and new mixes of the Beatles Anthology. Associated hit singles, the Grammy Award winning Free as a Bird and Real Love, given new life by their original producer, Jeff Lynne, using demixed John Lennon vocals. But Jeff, you haven't given it new life. You've it sounds worse than the version in '95. I really don't know what's happened, but it is not good. So I think, I'm hoping it isn't just me, but I just think it's terrible. It's an awful version. Um, so anyway, uh, so what else? Yeah, so that's what it says on the official site. Um, not everything is bad on this on Volume 4, to be honest. Let me just have a look through the track listing. It's a bit easier than having something like that. Right. I won't go obviously through all of these because you could be here forever and a day, and you don't want that. Anyway, what can I say? What can I tell you? I tell you what, there are some brilliant highlights actually on this, and they are. Now then, let's have a look. Right, on disc 2, there's an absolutely superb version of Julia. Now, this is two rehearsals. So John strums Julia at first before picking again, and it's his vocals are just completely natural. And I've got to say, it sounds really, really beautiful. I was really pleased to hear that track. So yeah, that's a standout for me. Um, Another one is Take 8 of Get Back. That's great. It's really punchy. Really enjoyed that. It's got some witticisms from Paul on there. So that is good. I will include Free as a Bird there because I think actually that's not been done too bad. As I say, I'm just disappointed with Real Love. Um, so there are some good things on here, to be honest. The Take Two version of I Saw Her Standing There, again, fantastic. And Money, which is undubbed. Now, that is, it says RM7, so maybe I'm being thick, but it could be Remaster 7, I don't know. So that's Remaster 7 of Money, That's All I Want. And that is superb. I mean, that always sounded superb anyway, I think, on with the Beatles. But it's because it's undubbed, it's got a real power and energy about it. And to hear John, I mean, I don't know how many hours he was singing that song or songs on that album, but flipping it, you can tell his voice is really, really strong. And I've got to say that about Lennon. In the early days, his voice was pretty top notch. It could be really, really rough and ready and just great. I loved it. So the version of Money on here is again superb, and that's on disc 1, I might add, along with I Saw Her Standing There. Um, you know, there are some things that I can sort of, not that interested in, such as, the instrumentals, um, you know, with perhaps the, I don't know, let's have a look. I suppose the one that I do sort of like, actually, without the instrumentation on it, is Got to Get You Into My Life. Now, that one, I got to be honest. I'm just trying to find it here, so I do apologise. Right, got to get into my life. Second version, unnumbered mix. That doesn't have saxophones and all that jazz on it. That simply has a fuzz tone guitar on it, and I think it sounds pretty good. It's of its time, it's of its day, and I don't dislike it. In fact, I think it's all right. Actually, it's not a bad track. I would think there's more standout tracks. I think personally than there are duff ones. Um, Another gem on here is "In My Life." Now that's take one, and that is just John singing the song, no vocal effects added, etc. And do you know what? It sounds absolutely beautiful. It is so good to hear John's natural vocals on this song. It sounds wonderful. It really, really does. Again, for me, that is a standout track. There is some good stuff on there. Right, as I was saying, there are some gems on Anthology 4, it has to be said. Um, Now, Here Comes the Sun, take nine on here, is great. And I do appreciate that because, again, it is completely naked and vulnerable vocals. And it sounds brilliant. George sounds excellent on here. The guitar playing and the vocals work amazingly. Behind all of the added extras for these songs, a lot of them at least, you do find that these guys really could deliver the goods. Um, Another case in point, I have to say, is This Boy. Now, that is a combination of, I'll just check. Right, This Boy is takes 12 and 13. And again, it's a favourite of mine, I have to confess. And one of the highlights of that song is John's solo vocal in the middle of it. Now, it's pretty epic as it is double tracked, but to hear him sing this raw, without any additional dubbing, etc., is pretty amazing. I mean, that guy could really belt it out, and he really doesn't disappoint on that track. On this version of This Boy, it is pretty good. So that takes 12 and 13 on that. Tell Me Why, that's brilliant. They really are and really were talented. There's no doubt about it. Again, every little thing on it is good. But you've got to really appreciate that a lot of these recordings are, takes that have been put together. But to be honest, to look at these tracks on here, the ones I've mentioned specifically, to be able to hear those tracks actually unadorned with any different effects on them, etc., makes for refreshing listening. And you do appreciate that these guys did have talent. And over the years, yes, it became more and more polished. And yes, more of the studio was involved. But behind all of those layers, you have got some outstanding talent, outstanding musicianship, and you got good fun and laughter along the way, as you'll hear, with through the outtakes here. Um, you've got I Am the Walrus on here, take 19, but that includes the strings, brass, and clarinet overdub. And to be honest, I mean, you don't get, it's literally the instrumental. To be fair, or mainly most of it is. But it works. It's really interesting to hear how it was all put together, including, as I say, the additional instruments that were recorded on a lot of these tracks. So, what can I say? All in all, I think it's not a bad addition. I quite like the tracks that I have. Most of the tracks on here, I would argue, are not bad. There are some real gems there. Obviously, there's stuff that's, would be left on the cutting room floor, so to speak. You may not enjoy those bits. You may want to skip them. But amongst, I hate to say the words dross because that's a bit unfair, but amongst all the stuff that goes around to making fleshing these tracks out are some real gems. And to hear these guys singing, with with just a normal natural voice, and no effects on it, is just breathtaking. And I've it's made me really appreciate just how talented they were. So I would say yes, Volume 4 I think is good. It has got, as somebody asked me, has it got a lot of cool cuts on it? Well, yeah, there's some cool cuts on here. I think it's not a bad album. As I say, my initial disappointment was Real Love, which I don't know what I don't know what was going on in the studio when it was remastered and whatever, but to me it's a mess. It doesn't work. It sounds just inferior to the original. But as I say, if you ignore the fact of that, and you look at this as a collection of outtakes, a collection of some great bits in it, an alternate version of, as I say, got to get you into my life, get back, don't let me down, rehearsal. It's not a bad collection. It isn't a bad collection at all. So yes, I would say it's worth it. And again, it's subjective. You might think, is it worth it? Is it a cash grab? It's subjective. I wouldn't buy volumes 1, 2, and 3 again. I don't need to. As I said, I don't listen to them enough. Volume 4, yeah, it's okay actually. It's not bad. I think it's a bit more well put together, to be honest, than the first three. And yeah, there's stuff you can really listen to and appreciate. So anyway, that's my take on it. Anthology Volume 4. It's out now, of course. The TV series remastered, etc., etc., is premiering on November the 26th on Disney Plus. So keep a lookout for that. And thank you for tuning in and listening. And send your opinions too. What do you think of it? Genuine, bona fide, excellent collection to have, or just a quick buck to be made. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Thanks for that. Bye.